about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated, yes.
To our favorite shows.
Oh, my circuits.
Everybody loves Hypnotoad.
Scary Dog.
Pearson at Blurnsville.
Futurama.
Good evening. You are listening to a Rattledge and Broadcasting premier podcast TV party tonight. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Rattledge. And tonight, our favorite show is Impact Hard to Kill 2021, featuring AEW's Kenny Omega as he teams up with the Good Brothers. They were once known as the Bullet Club in Japan, and they took on the team of Rich Swann, Chris Sabin, and Moose, who replaced Alex Shelley because Alex Shelley was out with an injury. But I'll tell you who's not out with an injury. He comes to play, injured or not. Are you hurt or are you injured? And
I can tell you one thing. I'm not putting up with any sass.
And Chris Bailey is neither. How you do, sir?
I'm doing good. I can't wait to cover the Steven Seagal 1990 action thriller Hard to Kill. All right. This is on trial, right? Am I on the show? Anybody?
All right, Chris. So now I've missed the last couple of weeks of Impact. I saw the one that followed Winter is Coming. So did everybody who watches wrestling.
Yes.
I saw Kenny Omega did the stupid interview in the trailer where he was like, basically, I'm Ric Flair. I'm going to go everywhere except the WWE, and I'm going to collect all the belts, and I'm going to win all the money. See ya. That was a De La Soul reference right there. I don't know if you knew De La Soul. Anyway, he's like, I'm going to collect all the belts. I'm going to collect all the Infinity Stones, and I'm going to put them all on a gauntlet. And Kenny Omega is trying to be the Ultimo Dragon. Remember that? Remember that picture, that very famous Ultimo Dragon picture, where he had like every belt that had ever been made?
I think that is like a childhood dream of mine, just to be covered and buried in belts. Like, it doesn't even know what it's for. Just like the Burger King Championship. You name it, I'll take the belts.
I have two pictures like I want to have taken of me. One is the Pete Dunne biting on the belt and and standing in the ring. Ah! And the other one is I want the Ultimo Dragon belt bukkake picture.
Yo. That's an interesting way of putting it. Okay, I'm all about the bukkake, baby.
Anyway, so first stop on the tour, Kenny Omega has since been working with Impact. The Good Brothers showed up on Impact to throw Jon Moxley a beating. Kenny Omega has shown up on Impact to throw Rich Swann a beating. And that brought us to tonight's pay-per-view. Though I started watching one of the recap specials from at the end of the year, but anything new that happened between then and Hard to Kill, I missed. So were there any major developments leading into, besides Omega throwing Rich Swann a beating, anything else of note?
Okay, so being a Canadian, I make a point seeing that a lot of this stuff is Canadian branded now with Scott D'Amore and Cyrus the Virus running the show. So I make note of trying to catch up on Impact all the time. So we had a few things that are out of left field, and I'll get into it as we get into each match. Like we had Crazy Steve and Rosemary reformed Decay out of nowhere for no particular good reason other than to start the show, which is really, really odd. We had a tag team championship tournament that was building up for several weeks and all that stuff. And, the top of the food chain was supposed to be Tyra Valkyrie and, oh my goodness, who was her tag team partner? I can't remember. They were supposed to be the number one seed. Anyway, it ended up switching swords, and we ended up getting Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steele taking on Havoc and Nevaeh in the main event. So, that was a little bit of a out-of-nowhere thing. Now, we had Donna Purrazzo, who's jumped into Impact Wrestling and just taken over Diana. And, she has done a really good job with the Impact Knockouts Championship, and she is on a bender, and she had to face Tyra Valkyrie. So this is considered a high-profile a high-profile Impact Knockouts match. So, a lot of back history there. And then, of course, you had Eddie Edwards and Sami Callihan, who have been feuding apparently forever. Eddie Edwards was a part of the American Wolves, and I think the very second that he got finished with that team in a Ring of Honor, he jumped into a feud with Sami Callihan. So, this one has been going on forever. So I can talk all day and all night about their history, but yeah, so little bit of build up, but what we see and what we get here on the show, I think, is just and I think they put off a decent show. So there you go.
All right. Well, we're not going to talk about the pre-show match, which was Brian Myers, formerly Kurt Hawkins, defeating Josh Alexander of the North. The North.
Hey, I actually introduced Josh Alexander in one of my forays into wrestling announcing. So there you go. He shoved me out of the way. That's my claim to fame.
I feel like it was this one, Josh Alexander. Yeah, he was the one with the headgear. Who he showed up at the last Bloodsport and took on. It wasn't Chris. He showed up at Bloodsport and took on somebody. I don't remember who, but that also had John Moxley and Chris Dickinson on it. So in my brain, they're all like scrambled together. But yes, Josh Alexander was in fact on the last Bloodsport show. That was fun. That was the last time I saw him wrestle, as a matter of fact. Anyway,
he's a really good wrestler. If he was in not Impact Wrestling, if he was in NXT, I think we'd see something out of this guy. There's talent there.
Yeah, for sure. I liked him on the Bloodsport show, which is a lot of chain wrestling. So Kurt Hawkins, Brian Myers defeated Josh Alexander, 10 minutes, 55 seconds. Moving on. We opened up the show with whatever the hell Decay is supposed to be.
So Decay, we're going to flash back 4 years.
Oh, boy. So
Decay is basically what the Firefly Funhouse is now. So, I mean, you talk about The Fiend, this is all born out of Decay. So, they're not just a Marilyn Manson ripoff. They're a series of basically fiends that, go around doing creepy shit as a group. Now, it originally involved the Abyss as well. But now he's a talent agent for WWE right now. So we're left with Crazy Steve and Rosemary, and they got back together for apparently no reason.
And they took on Tennille Dashwood, formerly Emma of the WWE, and
Emma.
Caleb with a K, who I guess at one point was one of the people playing Suicide.
Oh, boy. So let's start out with this match. So you get the creeps. You got Crazy Steve. You got Rosemary. They're, your twisted underbelly, your demonic people. They are Decay. They're the bottom of the food chain. Then you got the beautiful people. You got Tennille Dashwood. You got Caleb with a K. And they're so consumed with taking selfies of themselves. They're caught up in how beautiful each other are. And that's about the extent of this match. You didn't really get a lot of, back and forth or wondering who's going to win. Crazy Steve and Rosemary pretty well knocked their block off while the other people were concerned with taking a selfie on the top rope. So, not much stakes at hand. And Decay comes out the winner here.
Yeah, without having to look these people up, the only one who I knew, without having to Wikipedia them, was Tennille Dashwood. She's shown up at AEW. She was here, like I said, for a long time she was Emma on the main roster in NXT. She was the goofy one that was dancing, and then she came out once, did like serious dancing, and then she was like, I'm done now, bye. And then they gave that gimmick to Lana for a cup of tea. In any case, it was okay for an intergender match. It was, a lot of what I'm going to say about this show is nobody necessarily seemed particularly klutzy, but not a lot of like wrestling that stood out. This was one of those examples of it was just a wrestling match. Nothing too bad, nothing too great. It was just kind of there.
Just a fun little match to start the show, but I don't know if I would have started the show with this. It was kind of anticlimactic and there's zero stakes. So
yeah, I mean, where else would you put it though? You want you want to start off with something that isn't embarrassing, but that isn't going to have a tremendous amount of impact later on, unless that's the story you're writing.
I don't know if they didn't hit embarrassing on this one, to be honest with you.
Speaking of embarrassing,
I knew you were going to say it.
The next match was an old school rules 6-man tag featuring Violent by Design, Eric Young, Diener, and Joe Doring, who defeated Cousin Jake, who doesn't even have a Wikipedia link, Rhino, and old fat fuck Tommy Dreamer.
Ugh.
So my wife was out there watching this with me to start the show. She didn't last through the whole thing. As a matter of fact, I think she noped out after this one. But she looked at me, she looked at the screen, she looked at me, she looked at the screen, she's like, fucking Rhino still around?
See, even she gets it.
And I was just like, really? That's the one? Because I would have thought you would have said, oh my god, Tommy Dreamer still wrestles.
Yeah, in those horrible, independent, yellow polka dot pants, which drives me crazy.
You know,
someone steal those pants and make sure he never wears them again.
She
Please.
She asked me if he was doing some sort of ode to Dusty Rhodes, and I'm like, only in his belly.
Please, baby. He's a plumber.
Tommy Dreamer's fat. That's what I'm trying to tell you. All right. So, in 50 words or less, what is a Diener and what's a Joe Doring?
Okay, so here you go. So Eric Young is basically the new cult leader in Impact. So he's taking talent that have been overlooked, underdeveloped, and he's basically twisting them and molding them into something different. So he jumped on Joe Doring, who's been over in Japan. You know, he's a Triple Crown champion, blah, 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 blah. A big, stocky brute of a man, a big cowboy. And he took him and he twisted under his waist. So that was the first student of Eric Young. Now, I don't know why Eric Young has chosen to be a cult leader, but I guess, you know, he's sort of playing off his sanity thing from NXT.
Yeah.
Now, of course, then you have Cody Deaner. Now, Cody Deaner was part of a tag team called the Deaners with Cousin Jake. So picture the Hillbillies. So remember Hillbilly Jim, Cousin Luke, Uncle Elmer? Same situation, except there were some backwoods fighting, you know, hillbillies. That's what Cody Deaner and Cousin Jake were. And it's as bad as it's as bad as it sounds, to be quite honest with you. Now, out of nowhere, Cody Deaner walked away from Cousin Jake. Now, he's been beating up on poor old Cousin Jake every single week, and Cousin Jake has left him alone because this is his boy, his brother, Cody Deaner. So we have not seen these two pair off as of yet. So this is basically their first real one-on-one encounter where we're going to see Cousin Jake and Cody Deaner square off. And, of course, it's an old-school rules match, and you know what that means, Mark. No over-the-top ropes. No holding on to submissions past 10. You know, that's an old school rules match, right? Isn't that what that means?
Sure.
Oh, wait a second. Wait, we're talking about Extreme. Oh, we're going to get Extreme and use shit in the ring. We're going to throw thumbtacks. We're going to throw chairs. We're going to use a stupid stool, which is one of the stupidest gimmicks I've seen in a long time. And you drum out Rhino, who apparently doesn't age and is pickled and sent from the future from some cryogenic chamber. And
I want to see them wheel out a pickle jar and him just burst out of it.
And then you have, as you said, big fat Tommy Dreamer. I remember seeing Tommy Dreamer in ECW and going, oh, I can't wait. It's, you know, the innovator of Extreme, and loving Tommy Dreamer and just buying into everything that he did. Now I just want him gone. Now he's sort of sad seeing him come to the ring, and I'm sick of these old school rules. If anyone wants an ECW reunion pay-per-view, shut the fuck up is all I got to say. We're done here.
Everybody in ECW is either old, fat, or dead. No! Don't do it.
Tommy Dreamer may be all of those.
Didn't Tommy Dreamer die? Yeah, but he won't accept it. He just keeps going.
And now he's wearing the Terry Funk red headband, as you might have noticed. There's a little Easter egg there. So I think he knows he's getting old. Terry Funk style.
All right, so at this point, I think my dinner had arrived, and I was paying more attention to that than the match. What did you think?
I would call it it's your basic garbage match. And they didn't do anything that was outside the norm. I mean, you had a thumbtack spot where Eric Young fell into thumbtacks, and I don't think any of those actually stuck in him. So he fell into them. He even rolled around and did his damnedest to make sure that one of those things punctured his skin, but I don't think it did anything. He literally lit in thumbtacks that not one stuck in him. He didn't draw 1 pint of blood, nothing. So that was all gone to pot. Some of the chair shots and all that stuff, just standard fare. And you finally got the one-on-one encounter between Cody Deaner and Cousin Jake, and it was okay. So,
yeah, for what I saw of this was like, I think like the wrestling in and of itself was meh. I think I was more taken aback by I can't believe Rhino and Tommy Dreamer are still doing this.
Yes.
All right, this next one, me and my daughter watched together because it was a bunch of young women, and Lily and I actually were big fans of Women of Wrestling before Anthem bought Access Television and kicked it off the air along with New Japan. So we were really upset about that. But we actually knew Kiera Hogan and Havoc and Nevaeh from Women of Wrestling. And my daughter likes Kiera Hogan. I think she was known as Fire in Women of Wrestling. So she was really into this. I was really into this. She was shouting and cheering and carrying it on for Fire and the Flavor.
Yep.
they, of course, they were your good guys, and Havoc and Nevaeh were your, gruesome heel monsters. And I actually thought this was a pretty good match. I thought Fire and Flava played the role of smaller, faster, good guys trying to not get caught by the power moves of Havoc and Nevaeh. And Havoc, she's a big girl. She's a beast of a woman. She's not a bad wrestler. And Nevaeh, held up her end too. So I think of all the matches tonight, this one might have had like the best psychology, believe it or not.
I'm going to agree with you. So I think we got something here in Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steele. I mean, they look great together. They're a young black female tag team, almost like they're their own high-flying Harlem Heat. And man, they really pulled this off. I mean, I wish they had a crowd because I think these girls would be something special. I get a real special vibe out both of these. Now, Kiera Hogan's been in Impact Wrestling for a little while, but she really hasn't laid claim to anything. You know what I mean? She's sort of floating around. There wasn't any real storylines of any substance. And now she seems to have finally found her own in this tag team with Tasha Steele. And, man, this was really a good match with Havoc and Nevaeh because you got the two big girls, Havoc and Nevaeh, throwing these poor girls into the air. I mean, they took some really, really sick bumps. Probably the most competitive match of the entire night here. And we crowned brand new tag team champions with Hogan and Steele winning those belts. And, man, I was impressed. I was like, okay, these girls are the future here. I mean, I really, really thought there's something special there. Now, I thought we were going to have a little bit of a swerve ending because out of nowhere, Madison Rayne and Gail Kim, who were former tag team champions before they removed the belts, came in to present the tag team titles. Now, you got to understand, Madison Rayne had just retired on the pre-show. So I'm like, okay, here comes the Vince Russo swerve, bro. It's a swerve. Are they going to attack them because they were there in their evening gowns? And I'm like, this will be great. Nope, they handed them the belts and let them celebrate. And you know what? I was okay with that. I really, really liked this match. Excellent.
My wife's assessment of this match, I think Gail Kim had a lot of plastic surgery. I'm like, well done. That's why I love.
She looks like what's the Mrs. off Grey's Anatomy who started out? Sandra.
I don't watch that white people shit.
What? Oh, please, excuse me, sir.
Try to keep it real.
Sandra Oh. She looks like Sandra Oh.
She really does.
Her face
hilarious.
is so tight. She's got the jaws and everything. I'm like, whoa, Gail.
So my daughter didn't know who either one of those people were. She obviously wasn't alive when the beautiful people were a thing, and she didn't know who Gail Kim was. And so I said, Lily, that's Gail Kim. I said she had two things she accomplished as a wrestler. She's like, what's that? I'm like, one, she was the TNA Knockouts champion, and she had what was like a Hall of Fame feud with Awesome Kong. She was great. The other really fun thing she did was on her last night in WWE, just eliminated herself from a battle royal and fucked off.
So can I tell you a story about Gail Kim? So you'll love this, okay? So I met Gail Kim twice in my entire life. So once was at a Walmart. Now, I was training as an assistant manager at Walmart, and when I got to this store that I was training at, it was in another province. I had to fly to get there. And when I got there, they had an autograph signing with the WWE wrestlers. And I was like, oh, my God, who's this going to be? I couldn't wait. Out walks Gail Kim, and I'm like, oh, fuck, it's Gail Kim. And the other one was Chris Benoit. And I was like, holy shit, this is great. So anyway, I got to meet him just for a second, say, hey, I'm Chris, I'm a big fan. And they're like, oh, yeah, get out of my way, you creep. And that was sort of thing. Anyway, next, flash forward. When I was going to Florida in your stomping grounds pre-COVID, I got tickets. Now, I didn't realize that you could get in for free to an Impact pay-per-view, okay? That's how stupid this guy is. So I went to Universal Studios. They didn't even tell me what show I was attending, other than that it was a pay-per-view. Well, it was one of the women's pay-per-view, and I was semi-pissed. I was like, holy shit. I was at I can't even remember what it was called, Knockout something or other. TNA Knockout something or other. Anyway, Gail Kim was on the show. So I was fanboying all over the place. I mean, I met all the wrestlers. You could get up on the rail. And I remember specifically myself and my son came up and we were slapping hands. And we were the only ones who were doing this. And, Gail Kim came down and she's sort of like, who's the fat dude who's trying to touch me? And then I was sent back to my seat with my son by security. So that was cool.
Nice.
that's my Gail Kim story. Thanks, Gail. I didn't want to touch you anyway.
Yeah, the Universal. So I've lived in Florida since 2005, And around 2006, 2007, my then wife at the time, this was wife number one, we actually went to Universal, and we didn't go for that reason, but as we're walking through, I think it was like, yeah, as we're walking through Universal Studios, they were like hawking that you could go see this wrestling event, and I wasn't following it enough at the time to know what wrestling event they were talking about. As it turns out, it was Victory Road.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, it was one of the Victory Road pay-per-views, and I think it's one that had Kurt Angle on it. I was like, holy crap! So yeah, they basically would just cattle call people like, do you like wrestling? Yeah, come this way, sir. You know, and then they'd put you on this long ass line, and then you sat in the studio and watched the pay-per-view.
But I had bought VIP tickets. I had lanyards, Mark. Lanyards. That said I was VIP. So here's what happens when you're VIP for TNA, by the way. So you got to stand in the same line. When it comes time, they come and corral you in. So are you VIP? Are you VIP? A bunch of people fake it and say, no, I lost my lanyard. So all these people were, I was supposed to be ahead of, all of a sudden are now in the line. But what they don't tell you is that everybody rushed to their seats. So there's no VIP section. It's like survival of the fucking fittest. So you get in there and everybody's running past you. You're like, hey, I'm VIP. I'm VIP. Didn't work.
All right.
I got great seats.
The next segment, some midget with punk rock hair came out named Ace Austin, and he rambled on the mic for a few minutes, and out walks, woo, 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 you know it, Matt Cardona.
So here's the deal with Matt Cardona. So they didn't know he was coming, okay? They had no idea. What a shock. We're breaking the internet. We broke the top 10 on trends on Twitter, one of which is McDonald's, by the way, on that particular night. So they're in the top 10 of Twitter because of the debut of Matt Cardona. Now, he had his own, basically, Titantron. His name did not come up, but they had this symbol that came up. It didn't say Matt Cardona. It didn't say woo, woo, woo. Nothing recognizable at all. But yet the announcers were like, oh, no, it can't be. And I'm like, I guess it can't be because I don't have a clue who the hell this is. And then, of course, Matt Cardona came out and he so they played it off pretty different here. So they actually made it a match. So Ace Austin is in the ring with his stupid henchman, Bad Man Fulton. Now, Ace Austin just came off like a tournament win where he laid claim to some sort of trophy. I don't know what it is. I can't recall.
Oh, is he the one that just won the X Division thing at Genesis like a week ago?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So anyway, he's laying claim. He's got these, he feels that he should be in the X Division match on this show. So out comes, I think it was Scott D'Amore, and D'Amore goes, you're not going to wrestle in the X Division match, but I have a match for you. And he's like, well, okay, who is it? And out comes Matt Cardona. So Matt Cardona comes in, and they go to a disqualification ending. So they're trying to protect Ace Austin. You know what I mean? And Matt Cardona, they can't have him lose, so they're in sort of painting themselves into a corner here. So what do? So why bother even having a match? Why don't you just have Cardona come in and wipe the floor with him and set up a match for Impact? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Am I wrong here? Is this the wrong solution? Because you have Matt Cardona's first debut as a disqualification. If I was a fan in that arena, and especially if I was VIP, I would have kicked up.
Can we stop pretending Matt Cardona is a thing?
Yes, please.
I mean, yes, there was a period of time when he had his YouTube show that he caught like an internet wave, and that was the time to capitalize on it. And like the height, people might say that the height of Matt Cardona's wrestling was when he won the Intercontinental title in a ladder match at WrestleMania in Dallas. I'm going to tell you that was actually on the downside of his career. It was the beginning of the downside, but it was still the downside. The height of Matt Cardona's wrestling career was when John Cena said, why isn't Matt, whatever the fuck his name was, Zack Ryder, why isn't Zack Ryder on Raw? And everyone went, who? Oh, the internet guy. Yeah, he should be on Raw.
Woo, woo, woo.
Woo, woo, woo.
You know it.
And then everyone who worked and created the formats backstage blinked twice and was like, and they went, who? Oh, the enhancement guy from Long Island? The one that used to be one of Edge's Really? And then someone was like, here, fucking just watch this YouTube clip. All right. And then fast forward to WrestleMania, 900 people on the roster got injured. Okay, I was in that match before I got injured. And then they picked Zack Ryder.
So you were there the night he won the U.S. belt?
Yeah.
Wow. Where were you on that night? You were in the crowd watching that.
I went to Dallas, just like I'll be going to Dallas next year. I was at Dallas that year. Me and my wife, we left the kids with some friends in Dallas, and we went to the show. And it was one of the being at the show was a great experience. Like the AT&T Stadium is really nice, and I had fun with my wife. We had fun in Texas. We got barbecue before the show at this like really great barbecue place. I have no complaints about the trip itself. That was the worst fucking WrestleMania I'd ever been to. Like everything. God, that was the one where Mox and Brock had a match Brock didn't want to be in.
Oh, that was hilarious.
I think that's the one where Shane jumped off the Hell in the Cell through the table.
Ugh. And landed on the giant crash mat.
Yeah, okay. That was the one where it was like Charlotte, Becky, and Sasha, and they fucking Bobby Roode it, and like Sasha ended up winning. I was so fucking mad. I was like, you built up. Everyone was dying for a Sasha win. We were like craving it. You could feel it in the air. Like Sasha's going to win the big one at WrestleMania, and it was like, nope, Charlotte Flair.
Oh man, how many times did they go to that well? I mean, it's always to the point where you don't want Charlotte to win, and by Jesus, she wins every time. It makes me sick like Strawberry Quick.
Yeah. So that whole, I think that was Chris Jericho and AJ Styles where Chris Jericho went over, and that was the beginning of the night of hell for me, where it was like, all right, it's every person who won that match reminded me of the joke about Lewis Black doing a joke about quail hunting, and he was comparing Dick Cheney in quail hunting to us attacking Iraq in the aftermath of 9/11. So he started like in quail hunting, you walk in a straight line and you all shoot like firing squad style. And I don't know if you remember the story of Dick Cheney shooting one of his fellow hunters in the face.
What?
Oh, you've never heard that story?
Jesus, Dick Cheney.
What
are you doing?
That's why Lewis Black went through the trouble of explaining all this, because he's like, I don't understand how Dick Cheney shot this guy. You're supposed to walk shoulder to shoulder in a line.
Boy, did he take a wrong turn at Albuquerque. Yeah. Jesus Christ.
So it's just like, the march up to WrestleMania, you're marching in a line, you're marching in a line, you're marching in a line, turn and shoot! Boom! Sasha Banks right in the face. Turn and shoot again! Shawn Moxley right in the face. Shoot again! Chris fucking AJ Styles right in the face.
Ugh.
Yeah. All right.
I think they were adamant around that time of not giving the fans exactly what they wanted. They were obsessed with, let's not do what the internet wants us to do and swerve them. Well, they quickly found out that nobody wants to swerve.
Yeah, I believe
sometimes
that
the path of least resistance is exactly what the fans want, you assholes.
I couldn't have said it better myself, but I think the problem was the head of the writing staff, the head of creative at the time was Ryan Johnson.
Exactly. It was the last Jedi of fucking WrestleMania. Nobody wants it. Nobody wants old man Luke sitting on the hill. They want Mandalorian Luke with the badass hair. Oh.
All right. We have now talked about this longer than the actual match. Yeah. It was 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and woo beat your X Division guy. Stop pretending Matt Cardona's a thing. He should be around to put people. And wasn't he just in AEW? Like, didn't he come out and give fucking Cody a hand job on television?
He did. He came out and they were teasing a feud with him and Cody Rhodes. He came out to save Cody Rhodes at one of the pay-per-views, and he made a big deal of it. And then he was set to show up on a couple of Dynamites. And then the contract or the negotiations fizzled out, and he never showed up again. And he just announced on Twitter that he.
What negotiations should have there been? Like, hi, you just came off of being a jobber on fucking WWE TV. Here's a sack of peanuts. Do you want it?
Yeah, but you got to understand, a lot of these guys think that they're getting the Moxley treatment and go right to the belt right away. Okay, so Cardona, I think in his own head, thinks that he's the man. But we don't even know if Cardona is signed to Impact yet. Although at the very end, when he was looking at the ropes and posturing for the camera, he's saying, I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm here to stay. That's what he's saying into the camera, if you could read his lips. But we'll wait and see.
Okay. Here's the rule. Dear wrestlers out there, here's the rule. If you come off of WWE TV and you expect to get a big money contract in AEW, ask yourself this question. Was I in the Shield? No?
Well,
then you don't get one.
That's the rule. I agree.
That
needs to be the new measuring tape right there.
Were you in the Shield? No. Okay,
Hold on. Wait a second. Matt Cardona, were you in the Shield? No. Get the fuck out. That's your criteria.
All right. Speaking of guys not in the Shield, the former TJP.
Don't say that. It's Manic.
Yeah. Right. Now he's Manic. Mr. Wrestling 2. Defeated Chris Bay and Rohit Raju.
Yes.
Rajit? Radio
Raju.
Rahim?
Stop. Be politically correct for once, for fuck's sake.
They had a triple threat match for the X Division title. This might have been almost like this was the third longest match on the entire card. They had a three-way flip-de-doo cruiserweight match. It was fine. And Manic ended up winning. They went through like a gauntlet of near falls that finally ended with Manic getting the pinfall over, I forget, did he pin Chris Bay or Rohit?
I think he did a roll-up finish to maybe Rohit, I think.
It was one of those where, like, I think one guy was about to win it, and then, like, Manic threw him off of him, did something to him, and then pinned the guy he was gonna pin. Anyway, he retained his X Division title at 13 minutes 50 seconds. What did you think of this three-way flip-de-doo?
So to start out, we gotta talk about what the entire angle was building up to this. Okay. So the angle was one of the guys had an obsession with proving that Manic is actually TJP, even though it's blindingly obvious that it is. You know what I mean? So Manic is an interesting.
You're Hulk Hogan. I'm Mr. Wrestling.
Exactly right. So Manic is actually a spin-off of Suicide, which is a long, detailed story from TNA's X Division, okay? So they introduced a character from a video game who was, a video game come to life, and they called him Suicide. Now, standards and practices says, by God, you cannot glorify Suicide. We have to change his name. He now becomes Manic. So Manic is basically their version of Suicide, except now it's TJP in the mask, and they've had a number of people under that hood. But the storyline here is that Chris Bay and Rohit were trying to prove to management for no reason at all, that Manic is TJP, even though it's blindingly obvious. So one of the things that rarely happens is that during this match, they actually unmasked the guy. So when was the first time that you've seen a masked wrestler physically unmasked halfway through the match? It rarely happens, but anyway, it happened. And by God, when they took that hood off, guess who it was? It was a guy dressed in war paint. So now you still couldn't, or it was TJP with basically his Manic stuff painted on his face. And it was clear to everybody, even though the announcers wanted to go, who is that? I can't really tell. Do you not watch your own show, Mark? Do you not watch your own show? Cannot you tell that this is TJP? It was. So anyway, TJP, who's from the WWE Cruiserweight division and all that stuff, that's his claim to fame. That's his only, key to success. And he won this match. So, I mean, all for nothing. You had a guy unmasked. You had a mystery unveiled. And it was the exact ending we thought it was. It was TJP as Manic. So there you go. I don't know what the purpose of it was. The match was just okay.
Okay, this next one, you and I actually disagreed about. First of all, Taya Valkyrie.
Oh my. We're not going to disagree on this. Man, describe that. If
someone send me links to nude pictures, please. Hotsy totsy.
So, Tyra Valkyrie is not a small woman. Let's start with that. But picture if you had to take a pile of fat and put it in the exact places where you need to place it, that's Tyra Valkyrie. Because every part of that woman that should pop pops properly. Holy smokes!
That is a
Every
woman.
nook and cranny is filled into perfection.
That was a
She's
woman who, around puberty, stood in front of the mirror drinking milk, doing the I must increase my bust exercise.
Oh my goodness, Liz!
Holy cow.
You're not wrong. Boy, she even got the Nike Pump version of breast implants. That girl was floating.
Yeah, somebody really needs to find out what her contract situation is and just be like, Vince, tits. And he goes, you're right, and sign her up.
Sold.
Okay,
but listen,
finally we'll have somebody who wins more matches than Charlotte.
Oh, well, you can tell Taya Valkyrie she's going to be a big star at some point. But she needs to get out of the Impact. She needs to get out of the Mexican scene and all that stuff, because I think she's proved her point on the independents. She really, really has a defined, definitive, cool look, and I think she's in a relationship with her good friend Morrison, John Morrison. Is she not? Is she still hooked up with that guy? I think she is. I think they're boyfriend girlfriend.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, then she's got an in in the WWE. She needs to finish up her contract with Impact and start sending feelers out to the WWE to get in on NXT, wrestle for a week, then get pulled up to the main roster like you do.
Exactly. And then you got Deonna Purrazzo, who is basically
the opposite.
Your Dollarama version of Sasha Banks, the boss. So, but I don't know. I'm not really sure.
needs to do some sit-ups. I actually liked her gear tonight because it was covering her belly.
Who's that? With who?
Deonna Purrazzo.
She has a belly?
Yeah. Like, every time I've seen her wrestle, she's, like, hanging out of her top in her pants. Like, she's just a little soft in the belly. Like, I whatever. Like, I'm not trying to body shame her, because, we talked about this when we did the UK, the NXT UK thing, where there was a big gal there, and it was like, okay, but she dressed like a big gal. Yeah. I'm not saying you have to be Big Bertha and like wear a fucking circus tent or a muumuu. But I'm not saying that. I'm saying, this is a conversation my wife and I have all the time, because my wife is a big woman, but she dresses appropriate for her size. And again, that's not a judge's robe or a circus tent. She dresses. I swear to God, I use that exact phrase with her. And she's like, right, I get it. So, people are like, oh, he doesn't like fat people.
Honey, go to Target and buy some new bed sheets. We got to go out tonight.
Honey, find your best silk sheets. We're going dancing. No,
terrible.
Just dress appropriate for your size. Like, I'm a big guy. I don't run around showing off, like my big fat chest and everything else. I wear appropriate clothing. And
you're not going around like the Blue Meanie.
No, no, sir. I haven't done the crop top since '89. But like Deonna Purrazzo, for the longest time, like, and I have nothing else to say about her other than, like, I get she felt, I think she's the one with the MMA background, and they weren't really using her like that. She was used as enhancement. And she's a pretty gal. She has a good build to her. She's just like a little flabby in the belly, which I wouldn't care about if she wore a one piece or if she wore something that covered her entire chest. Right. And I mean like everything above the waist.
I think we should be fair to these ladies and cover the match, because it started out.
I'm getting there. I only said I liked her gear I was trying to pay her a compliment. God damn it! I thought her gear.
You were failing.
Her gear looked great because she actually covered the worst part of her physique. Go ahead.
So both ladies started out with an entourage, and Taya Valkyrie came out with DK, Rosemary and Crazy Steve, for apparently no reason other than that, DK wants to be around this beautiful Taya Valkyrie, and I don't really get it. I think it's supposed to be a play on, beautiful people meeting up with like the terrible underbelly of society. I don't know what the whole deal is. I don't really get it. But anyway, both parties of the entourage were ejected from the match, and then it was down to Purrazzo and Valkyrie. And they were having a, basically one-on-one match. You had Taya Valkyrie with one of her basically limbs was injured, so Purrazzo was beating up on it, and she actually gets the win, and a fair win, by submission in the middle of the ring with like a double arm ringer, almost like a
that was the
Regal
thing. You didn't like the match. I'm like, this was one of the few matches that actually had psychology to it, and there was actual wrestling going on. It was very grounded. There was a lot of like chain wrestling going on. Deonna Purrazzo worked for submissions. Taya Valkyrie, who looks like a powerhouse girl, she looks like the Brian Cage of women. Was doing power moves. It was trying to counter Purrazzo. So you had the wrestling expert versus the power wrestler, and I thought they actually meshed well together. This was one of my favorite matches of the night. Which is why he's really crapping all over Deonna Purrazzo. She wrestled great. All I said was cover up your flab. Damn.
Have you ever wrestled one of your children?
Both.
I'm asking a serious question.
Yes.
Have you ever power bombed your son on the bed? And you know the answer is yes.
Of course. Who hasn't?
Now, do you pick him up and fucking give him the Vader on the floor, or do you give him a nice soft landing in the pillow?
Is there a third option?
You're giving them a nice soft landing in the pillows, and that's exactly what these girls were doing. And part of it was Taya Valkyrie has her own built-in pillows, perfectly ejected around the proper portions again, because I'm being a man. But it felt just a little light and soft. I think that's my biggest thing, is that the kicks and all these wheel kicks and all that stuff that Valkyrie was doing was just so slow and predetermined earlier on in the match that it literally took away. And it seemed like two different matches, because the second half of the match, when they broke out the injury portion, they went into a submission-based grounded style, which was okay. So half and half, if we're doing a 5-star match, this one gets about a 2.5 for me.
Okay. I'm not going to fight you on that. It might have been, by the time we got to the second half, the first have faded from my memory. And that's all I can remember is that second half where they were doing really good submission-style back-and-forth wrestling.
Yes.
Okay. Chris?
Oh, no! Mortal Kombat!
So, at about this time, in between, I was really trying to pay attention to this because I knew we were going to talk about it, and I couldn't be I was on my phone the whole time. But in between the girls and whatever the fuck this was supposed to be, they announced that WrestleMania was going to be 2 nights in Tampa, so I will not be going to either because I can't do a 2-night show, and I don't want to go to one half of a live show. So I'll stay home and watch that one. But they announced that WrestleMania was going to be in Dallas next year, and then the year after that, they were going to go to Los Angeles at the SoFi Stadium, which they were supposed to do this year, but COVID. That's all I was focused on. And the whole reason why I never looked up from my phone, and I was too busy retweeting that information and yelling at my wife through her door, because by that point she'd fucked off to bed, and I'm screaming from the living room, "Hey, we need to buy tickets to Dallas because WrestleMania, blah blah, yakety schmackety, and do you want to have a Dallas vacation? Yes, I'll go anywhere, except for Los Angeles for some weird reason. Long story. Anyway, so I was very much involved in WrestleMania planning and watching the Twitter feed. Also, and this is just an aside, if people who only listen to our wrestling reviews don't listen to anything else we do, I also review television and movies, and I've kind of gotten a bit of post-traumatic stress disorder from the amount of movies that keep changing their fucking release dates. So now, I frantically go through Twitter, and I go to Variety and Deadline looking to see, it's been 5 minutes, what else has moved? How else do I need to, rearrange my calendar of podcasts, In any case, I was kind of looking up periodically to see what they were doing, and I literally thought this entire thing between the Karate Man and Ethan Page was background. I thought they were doing vignettes leading up to a match. I didn't realize the vignettes were the match. So it all happens, and then and I see him pull the heart out, and I'm like, huh? And then they go to a package on Eddie Edwards and Sami Callihan, and the match is over, and the match, in quotes, is over. And I'm like, oh, I missed the whole thing because this is fucking stupid, and I didn't know that was supposed to be the match. So, Bailey, I'm going to shut up now and tell me what the fuck happened.
Okay, so first you gotta understand who Ethan Page is. So Ethan Page is one half of the North, which is a tag team. He's a tag team with Josh Alexander, okay? Now, they didn't have a breakup per se. It's just that Ethan Page was haunted by a demon that's inside him known as the Karate Man. So
please,
he actually thinks that he's...
Please stop. It hurts.
I'm sorry. Anyway, Karate Man is his Mortal Kombat video game, basically alter ego. So he set up a match on pay-per-view. He called out the opponent that he wanted on this pay-per-view, which was the Karate Man. So Ethan Page basically challenged himself. Now, everybody in Impact Wrestling knew the game that Ethan Page and Karate Man are one and the same, and you're wondering, how can this guy face himself? Is this going to be just a swerve? Are we not going to get a match? Nope. We got the match, folks. And boy, if you're sick of cinematic matches, this is a -10. This is probably the worst thing you're ever going to see. So if you played Mortal Kombat for the Super Nintendo and saw the shitty dubbed down graphics, that's what this was. It was literally Mortal Kombat on the Super Nintendo, and he got to fight himself. So they literally fought like a Mortal Kombat style match in front of like ridiculous green screen backgrounds, throwing fireballs, breaking glass, doing everything you could possibly name in different settings, including space, the beach, like the pyramids, everywhere you name. These guys fought, and I don't know. I guess Karate Man defeated Adam Page via murder. I don't know. He tore his heart out and claimed victory. So I guess the Karate Man lives on, and Ethan Page is dead with no heart. I guess that's what happened here.
When I was a kid, my friends and I, we thought we were being funny, and we would spell gay G-A-E and fag P-H-A-G. Because we didn't want to offend actual homosexuals, who we had no problem with, but we had to figure out a way. We had to figure out a way, Chris Bailey, to properly express our dissatisfaction with things, and we would say, "Blah blah is gay for fags."
Oh, wait a second here.
G-A-E-P-H-A-G-S, gay for fags.
Oh,
Karate Man versus Ethan Page. It's gay for fags.
I don't know anything about gay for fags, but let me tell you something. This match was.
I can't tell you how stupid that all sounded.
This was, folks. You got to literally look this up, and you'll never see anything as bad. It is horrible.
My God, that makes the swamp match from Extreme Rules look like Deliverance.
But I think it was the case. I think they went out of their way to make the special effects extremely cheap. Oh boy, like there's no intention to make this thing look good, streamlined, or edited properly. It's like Ethan Page walked into TNA or Impact Wrestling backstage and said, "Hey, Scott D'Amore, I got this Adobe Premiere program. I'm gonna fight myself on pay-per-view." And Scott D'Amore threw him a green cloth and said, "Here, go nuts."
I think Ethan Page is actually leaving Impact, so this was the way they wrote him off TV. Whatever.
But Karate Man will live on. Now.
Sure. If we could be serious for a moment. This next one, by this point, my daughter was well asleep. I actually wanted her to come out during Donna Purrazzo, Taya Valkyrie, and she was passed out. But my son, he can hang. He can go all night long. He's like a little walking 8-ball of coke. And so he likes watching the death match. Like, he doesn't really dig like regular catch-as-catch-can wrestling, but if there's a barbed wire bat involved, if there's a cage, if there's blood, and all that, he's into it. So I called him out for Eddie Edwards versus Sami Callihan, and we watched that together. And I tell you, like, I need to be doing like watch-alongs with him for certain matches because he's hilarious during this. He suggested something that I kind of looked at him like, that would kill them, Jonas. What? He was like, so? Oof, my little sociopath. Anyway, Eddie Edwards and Sami Callihan had a death match, as much as you can in Impact Wrestling, or for anything above the level of, no holds barred and Game Changer Wrestling. And, it was fine. They know what they're doing in there. They know how to take, the barbed wire hits to the belly and all of that. This was pretty brutal. It deserved its place on the card. It was two roughneck big dudes throwing each other into barbed wire, and it was just like one barbed wire spot after another until they ran out of time at almost 20 minutes, and Eddie Edwards won. So I liked it just fine. My son was entertained by it. you either, and I say this with all these matches, but it bears repeating, if you like this kind of wrestling, as long as they're doing that, you know, they make good use of all the weapons and all the barbed wire spots that they can, then it functionally served its purpose. If you don't like it, you're never going to think this is good. And it's not good wrestling. It's a good stunt show. That was what I thought.
So to understand this match, so Eddie Edwards is basically Impact Wrestling's own version of like a younger Tommy Dreamer, okay? So Eddie Edwards started out as a tag team with Davey Richards in something called the American Wolves, and they were a technical-based tag team. They were the British Bulldogs, you know what I mean? Version 2, and they were in Ring of Honor. They were in Impact Wrestling. They were really, really, really good. But anyway, Davey Richards ends up winning the Ring of Honor title, and anyway, due to injury and different things, he ends up retiring, which leaves Eddie Edwards, who's basically the Marty Jannetty of the team, by himself. So now he's got to come up with a gimmick. And this guy is Melba Toast. Like, he's got no personality. His wrestling is not interesting. He's not catching fire, but yet they got him under contract. So what did they decide to do? Eddie Edwards is going to become Extreme. Now, picture that. A piece of Melba Toast, you need to make that interesting. It's very hard to do. So they turned him Extreme. And boy, it took a long time, almost 2 years, to get over the fact that Eddie Edwards was an Extreme wrestler. And it seemed like back then he started a feud with Sami Callihan. And basically what was going on, they put Eddie Edwards out. You know, they did everything in the world. They dropped him into tacks. They electrocuted him. They cut him open. They did everything. They beat up his wife. You name it. They did everything. And then finally Eddie Edwards snapped. And this is where we lead to today. So the barbed wire, massacre match that we have here. And anyway, Eddie Edwards finally finishes off his major foe, the Joker to his Batman, by giving him this move, the Emerald Fusion, on like this barbed wire covered chair, I think it was. And, I don't know if this is the end of the feud. It really needs to. But, man, listen, Tommy Dreamer 2.0 is still does nothing for me. So I just don't get it. Now, the whole match, Eddie Edwards is telling his wife, please do not go out there. For God's sake, go home and watch my kids. I'm going to die out there. And it seemed like they only got about half a gear up. Do you think that they went full out? Do you think this was a good death match? I think this was okay. You know what I mean? I don't think they did too much.
I would say it's a C+. C+, B- somewhere in there. Yeah, it wasn't. That's the problem. Like, I watch like real death matches where there's nothing holding them back, and she's just sort of murdering a guy. Like I watched this guy, Akira, and like he wrestles matches, and there's blood everywhere. It's gross.
It is. It is. Like when I'll tell you what really bothers me when it comes to extreme death matches is when they get out those fluorescent light bulbs and they just litter the ring with it, and these guys are just rolling around and the blood is spewing everywhere. I can't stand it.
The last one I saw had hypodermic needles.
Oh my God!
So it's like that's the thing. It's like once you're pulling out needles and shoving them into people's faces. That was the last no holds barred match I saw. I can't remember.
Where do you go from there? You know what I mean?
Yeah, like what's next?
Yep.
Once you've got gusset plates and you're banging them into people's faces, and you've got like needles and hypodermic needles, and and you're jumping off of rooftops onto cars. You're like, all right, I don't know how y'all aren't dead, but
like what do you do? What do you do new that you can introduce into like a hardcore match? Is there anything that hasn't been done? Like, is there anything you haven't fallen off? What do you do? Give a guy COVID? My God, he's giving him COVID-19. COVID-19. What do you do?
Right.
There's nothing left.
You hit him with a firing squad.
Raid the Capitol. Go ahead.
The problem with pro wrestling is that you could shoot a guy at point blank range with a 9mm in the forehead, and he'd kick out.
So they did that. They had a guy shot. They actually have a storyline built in.
Was this the murder mystery?
Yes. So one of the people got at the main event on one of the Impact shows. The lights went out, and then they woke up and they heard a gunshot, and someone was shot in the middle of the ring. Yeah.
Yeah, Jim Cornette said that's the thing that finally pushed him over the edge. Like, I don't think anyone's told him about the Karate Man yet, but he talks a lot about how he'll never watch Impact Wrestling again because of the murder mystery thing. And now we finally come to it. The whole reason I watched this entire pay-per-view, the whole reason I'm even paying attention to Impact is, as we like to refer to him here on TV Party Tonight, my buddy, Kenny Omega. Wherever he goes, we go.
Absolutely.
He and the Good Brothers, Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson, took on Rich Swann and what was supposed to be, as I said earlier, the Motor City Machine Guns of Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley, but Alex Shelley got injured, so he was replaced by the Moose, who's loose. All right, 50 words or less. Why do Moose and Rich Swann hate each other?
Oh, because Moose, see, here you go. So one is the Impact World Champion. The other one is the fake TNA World Champion that was built out of a storyline that basically got lost in the shuffle over COVID. So now you got two people claiming to be world champions. Now, a couple weeks before this, Rich Swann's buddy, Willie, oh my goodness, what's
Willie
his name?
Mack.
Willie Mack, big fat Willie Mack.
Yeah, the guy who looked like he ate Junkyard Dog and took his soul.
Exactly. So Moose, who all of a sudden has become genetically jacked, learned how to wrestle, and just looks like a monster star, absolutely murdered Willie Mack, who's Rich Swann's buddy. So now Moose is like, enemy number one when it comes to Rich Swann. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, when Alex Shelley could not, appear in the match when it was supposed to be the Motor City Machine Guns, Moose took his place, and Rich Swann was not happy because this was the man who killed his boy. So now we had two champions, the TNA champion Moose and Rich Swann, the Impact champion, and they got some bad blood.
So the whole idea behind this match, other than, as I said before, Kenny Omega attacked Rich Swann on an episode of Impact. That's why they're part of this tag team match. But also, underneath that, you have Rich Swann and Moose who have bad blood, and can they overcome the bad blood in order to take out the interloper, Kenny Omega, and his Bullet Club Good Brothers, Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson? And that was all of the elements that made up this match, which was actually it was pretty good going in. And you and I talked about this offline. This was an opportunity for them to do the kinds of things that built up the NWO in 1996. So if you'll remember, Great American Bash, by that point, Scott Hall and Nash had kept showing up on WCW television. They were like, show up to the Bash and let's have a conversation. And then they did, and they put out the 6-man challenge, and then they threw Bischoff through the stage. Okay, so that was the Bash. And then there was Bash to the Beach, where it was Sting, Luger, and Savage versus the Outsiders, as they were known at the time. And then, and then Hogan came down, and oh my God, and then he turns on WCW, and they formed the NWO. And then I think the next month, Hogan won the title at Hog Wild. And so, but at every pay-per-view, from May through August, and then and then building through the rest of the year in 1996, there was always something at the end of the show that hooked you into wanting to watch the next episode of Nitro. You know what I'm saying? There's always something going on with the NWO where you're like, oh my God, there was always some like pandemonium, or somebody showed up, or they made good use of the TV time to hook you into wanting to see what happened next on Monday. So when I was watching this, and this is the point that I'm bringing up, you have this story where you have an invader who's already said on your television, "I'm going to get all the belts. I'm going to go to New Japan. I'm going to win the Impact title. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go there." And if I'm AEW, and I think they've talked about this in the news, I'm trying to get as many people to work with them as possible, and have Kenny Omega become the new Ric Flair and run around and grab all the belts. Exactly. And then start trading talent. Like, have somebody from Ring of Honor show up. Have him go to Ring of Honor. Blah, 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 blah. There's enough wrestling out there right now that you could do kind of an old territory NWA Ric Flair situation. You just have to, everyone has to be cooperative, and you have to write a really good story. So the point is, I was hoping that at the end of this one, somebody else would show up, or something would happen, or they would hook you in some way with some big explosive ending to make you want to keep watching Impact. That's not what we got. We got a pretty good 6-man tag, and at the end of it, Kenny Omega beat Rich Swann with the one-winged angel, and then he fucked off and left.
I know. So you were left with basically somebody coming over to your house, smashing up the furniture, and walking away unscathed. basically what happened here. So the trick is, what's the follow-up? What do we want to see out of this? So my hope, and we discussed this at length, you got a big star in Moose. He's and I never would have said that. If you listen to any of my commentary before on Moose, I buried this guy at every angle, because when he first showed up in Ring of Honor and then transitioned over to Impact Wrestling, I buried this guy at every notch because he sucked. He was out of shape. He ain't that anymore, folks. This guy learned how to wrestle. He is built like a brick shit house, and he's mean and nasty looking, man. So
I would say he's like Black Brian Cage, only he wins matches.
Man, he is a tank, and I would love him to show up and try to extract some revenge on Kenny Omega on Dynamite, but maybe I'm giving him too much credit. I just think that this was just a little bit of cross promotion. You know, get Kenny Omega on your show, and is the right answer to have Rich Swann walk over and defend the Impact title on Dynamite? Yeah, it probably is. Is it Moose to bring the TNA title over? Yeah, it probably is. That's what you need to do with these crossovers. It gives exposure to both companies. It's nothing but good as long as you treat both competitors serious and good. There's no harm in someone losing in 2021. Let's be fair. We're over the fact that Randy Orton loses to The Fiend. It means nothing the next week. You know what I mean? It's just we pick up the pieces and you move on. But did they do damage to Rich Swann here? I think he came out on the losing side of this one, man. I don't think this did anything for Rich Swann. But Moose came out looking like a star, so that's what I want to see. It's Moose to Dynamite. Let's make it happen this Wednesday. Let's see what happens. I'm giving them too much credit, I think.
I'm going to talk a little bit more about what they should do after, but give me like 50 words or less on what you thought of the actual match.
The actual match was actually, you know what? Everybody got their spots in. It was a spot show between Rich Swann and Kenny Omega, and they really, really had a good back and forth there at the end. The Good Brothers, man, listen, they're after picking up their game substantially. Like, this is not even the same team that appeared on Raw. I mean, they got their game back. They're doing moves. It looks like Doc is inspired again. This team is back full functioning. And, man, Carl Anderson doesn't get enough credit, but that guy's talent, man. I'm telling you right now, you talk about a versatile wrestler. I really, really enjoyed the match. Moose looked fantastic. And, of course, Chris Sabin was just there to take all the bumps. And I think it was super effective. Kenny Omega came out looking like a star. And I think TNA overall, or Impact overall, really, really got a little bit of a boost just by having the club on this show. So, I mean, good all the way around. No complaints about this main event.
They announced Rebellion for April, I believe. Let's see here. April 24th, 2021, back at the Skyway Studio. I guess they're anticipating not having a crowd again, which is fine. We kind of knew that already. This COVID's not going anywhere anytime soon. Sorry.
This was their first show with crowd noise, though. This was the first TNA Impact show since the COVID era that didn't sound like an empty arena. So they made the most of it, and it sounded good, man. I was completely distracted.
Yeah, no, I like the crowd noise. So here's the thing. One of two things is going to happen. They're either going to do Kenny Omega versus some combination of Rich Swann or Moose at Rebellion, or they're going to end up doing Rich Swann versus Moose in like a ladder match or something for the undisputed title.
No, I think we need one more shot at the old AEW crossover. I think there's money in that, man. Listen, you spread the wealth over to NWA. You give them 1 or 2 stars. You get them to show up on the show. You give them your Eddie Kingstons or somebody who's lower on the card that's not impacting your main event. And then you give them a big player like the Kenny Omega or somebody like that, or John Moxley. Mm-hmm. I mean, just imagine if
somebody from that show needs to come help John Moxley.
Yes.
If Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson are going to show up and throw Moxley a beating, then like Sami Callihan needs to run out there with a barbed wire bat and come save him.
I never thought of that. I think Callahan would be a good addition to Dynamite. I think there might be something there. You're right on the money. I think you just wrote him a meal ticket.
Well, you don't watch Game Changer Wrestling, but I think Moxley, he's sort of redefined himself as a garbage wrestler, and he likes to do the death matches, and like his feud with Eddie, God, too many people with K's. Eddie Kingston?
Yep.
Okay. His feud with Eddie Kingston, like they talked about, like you're an indie guy, you're a CZW guy, and you went to the WWE and you sold out, you forgot all that. Like that was the whole base of that feud. And I think, like, Jon Moxley needs to start retaliating, but, like, gather up all the misfit toys from, like, Game Changer Wrestling and Impact and all like, whatever garbage wrestlers he can find and just have them, like, be his army. You know, protect me with light bulbs. It'd be great. The point is, if they can... The problem is they don't have any other television besides the one Impact show on Access, and I don't know if giving away Rich Swann versus Moose on free TV is a great idea. I think that's those are your headliners. I mean, I don't give a shit about Rich Swann, but I know people do, and you threw the belt on him, so you must care about him somewhat. I think I would rather see like Kenny Omega versus Moose at Rebellion. But if I saw Rich Swann versus Moose and they just sort of dragged this out for a little while, I wouldn't be upset about that either. But please, like, don't drop this angle. Don't be like, all right, we're done now. Like, that was fun while it lasted, and it ended with a fucking poop fart. Because that's the thing. Like, it was just a match. It was just a match. And it was okay. And like, if that's the end of your story, it's like. Well, that was really anticlimactic, and the bad guys win cleanly with no cheating whatsoever, no controversy. He just won because he's a better wrestler.
It needed the Jon Moxley invasion and the run-in and the complete and utter anarchy and clean the ring. That's the angle that should have happened here, but I think they had a little bit of a missed opportunity. But maybe we're saving that up for some Dynamite action and trying to make some money out of it. So I don't know.
We'll see. Overall, again, I think the entire pay-per-view was kind of a C+, B- for me. It was average. I think like the critically acclaimed guys, they say most movies are in the C range, so it's either a C-, C, or C+. And and I kind of feel the same way about wrestling. This was average, so average to okay, average to good. So C+, B- somewhere in there, depending on how gracious I'm feeling.
Yep, I'm with you on that. I think I'm going to give it a C+ because there was a lot of stuff that I did like here. It was good seeing some different talent than I'm used to seeing on on the big leagues. You got to see your Taya Valkyries, you know what I mean? Which is good to see. And I mean, a lot of different talent. You had Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz. I mean, that was nice to see. Just new faces. It just makes me happy. Put it that way. And I would listen. There's no shame in Hard to Kill 2021, man.
No,
this was Impact Wrestling.
This was solid. This was a solid show. Nothing that was. Here's the thing. Nothing was embarrassing or so bad. I felt like I needed to turn it off. I mean, I wasn't paying attention to the Karate Man bit, so I'm not going to count that.
It looked like a company that was doing okay, and I think that's all you can ask for in 2021.
All right, so are we down for Rebellion?
We're down for Rebellion. You write it down, baby.
All right, even if Kenny Omega doesn't show up, now you got me hooked on this TNA product.
All right, I knew I'd do it. MLW's next.
All right, go ahead and plug your podcast and whatnot.
All right, so you'll find Chris Bailey. First, we'll start over on the Twitter, which I'm at Charlton_Hero, so you can find all kinds of my antics over on Twitter. When I comment on everything, movies, comic books, wrestling, you name it, I'm at it all the time. The Twitter is my best friend. So if you want to really get into my soul and chat with me live in a Technicolor, follow me on the Twitter. I'm kicked off Parler just like Donald Trump, so there you go. Can't access that. Now, my own podcast, Superhero Satellite episode 1 launched last week. We had episode 1 of 4. Coming up next week, we're going to have a very special episode covering 80s vintage toys. And I got a couple super guests lined up, so I think you're going to want to love that. So if you ever collected a toy, we're going to go in deep, and we're going to have an extensive conversation on all the fun stuff we grew up with. So that's Superhero Satellite Episode 2 coming your way. Hopefully by the end of next week, we'll have that one in the can. Over on my blog, this is the Superhero Satellite. I plan on updating some of that stuff. We're going to have some Superblog team-up action going to be happening at the beginning of March, I'm planning. So I'll release that information there. Outside of that, I'm stuck here and gloriously with Mr. Mark Radlich and the Podsman, and I'm loving my wrestling coverage. So keep them coming, Marcus.
All right.
Keep pouring me out.
So this past Sunday, we did a boxing show on George Foreman, the life and times of the great George Foreman. Thank you. Christian and Robert Winfrey joined me to talk about Bounty Hunters, the first volume of the trade paperback. We looked at issues 1 through 5. Tonight, me and a few others of the Rattledge Broadcasting family will be reviewing The Mandalorian Season 2. There's an on-trial for the 2010 Karate Kid with Jackie Chan and Jaden Smith, who my son thought was a girl. I
have a question. How does the Rattledge Broadcasting's only Star Wars fan not be on any of the Star Wars shows? How is that possible?
You don't ask.
No, what a bunch of bastards. They're holding me back. I'm being held back by the glass ceiling here in the Rattledge Broadcasting.
And finally, we will be reviewing the third season of Cobra Kai this Thursday. Last week we did The Boys Volume 2, Get Some, which was issue 7 through 14. We reviewed The Boys Season 2, Transformers Chapter 2, War for Cybertron, Earthrise, in which there was no actual Earth. And myself and Chris Bailey looked at both nights of AEW New Year's Smash. For wrestling, coming up in the near future, we've got a couple of things brewing. Next Thursday, the 28th, myself and the Podsman will be reviewing the WWE's India special, WWE Superstar Spectacle. That, you know, given our propensity for political correctness, that ought to go well. And then
we are all about the politically correctness, I'll tell you that.
The Royal Rumble is January 31st. We will cover that on February 2nd. And then another special episode of Dynamite. You said keep them coming, and so we are. AEW Beach Bash, February 3rd. And we will bring that to you on Friday, February 5th. They moved around a bunch of dates for WWE Wrestling. So NXT TakeOver, if it's not called the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, I just don't know who's running that company anymore, is on Valentine's Day, February 14th. We'll review it on February 16th. And then the Elimination Chamber moved up a week. It's now the 21st. So we will review that on February 24th. So look forward to all that wrestling coming up in the near future. Oh, and then finally, Chris Bailey. AEW. Goddamn, pal. AEW Revolution, February 27th. We will review it on March 2nd. Now I'm done. Goddamn.
All right. Now here, I just have one word of advice before we let our listeners go. Please do yourself a favor as a man, and do not purchase St. Valentine's Massacre for your significant other on Valentine's Day and make that your Valentine's Day gift. It ain't going to work. You're going to eliminate your skin ticket for that night. I'm just letting you know. That's solid advice from Charlton Hero. There you go.
Hey, honey, for Valentine's Day, do you want to watch these guys wrestle on NXT? That's fine, but who's the midget with the girl with the blue hair? Johnny Gargano.
Oh, no. That's the way, my friend.
Wrestling is gay for fags, and I'm going to bed early. That's what your wife will say to you or your girlfriend.
Oh, I don't know nothing about that. He's by himself on that one, folks.
All right, folks. Thank you for listening to our review of Impact Hard to Kill. For Chris Bailey, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.